How's it going, everybody? And welcome to another edition of YouTube's Ask Me Anything. So this is a follow-up comment that was left on the video that I did yesterday about the question that came in about eBGP over the WAN, over MPLS and DMVPN, and some redistribution and some other stuff that was going on. And there was some parts that were not quite clear, but I made some assumptions and things like that. So we see that I'm going to say his name is Ali because he didn't correct me otherwise if it's different. So pardon me if your name is actually not Ali. So this is an interesting scenario, and I actually do not like being in these situations. So here is a scenario where we have a viewer that is, from what I'm reading through here, is a consultant for a customer. This is the scenario. This is the network he's working on, and he's presented me with more details, which really didn't help too much. I was already pretty familiar with what they already had working, and so now the question has gone further. So this would be like another design discussion, if you will, or a follow-on discussion, where he's presented me with 3 different scenarios or solutions that could be used to handle egress traffic. And so here's where I draw a line, and I have to, because I don't want to get myself, number one, I'm not getting, there's a legality aspect to this. And you might be like, well, you're just providing some feedback on a YouTube video. I am, but what the ask is for me to go through all 3 scenarios, break them down, understand them, and then reply back with what solutions should I go with, which one's better, A, B, or C. And I'm not going to do that. You have already done quite a bit of legwork on this, and you have spent quite a bit of time writing this up, and I am going to basically tell you that that's on you. That's your job, and I'm going to be straight up with you. When I was a consultant, I would have internal discussion, especially customer-facing stuff that you're planning on doing in a customer network. I would have internal conversations. I would come up with a solution, and then I would go talk to other engineers and do what they call a peer review. I would present my solution to them and be like, what do you think? Poke holes in it. Does this make sense to you? Is this stupid? Feedback, please. And that's their job. So if you and I work together and this was the expectation, then yeah, I would sit down with you or hop on a WebEx or a Teams call or Zoom or whatever, and then we would figure it out. And then I would be like, okay, yeah, I think this would be the better of the two ways to go, or 3 ways, or whatever. So in this particular case, I'm not going to do that for you. I'm not. I'm going to tell you that you have 3 different ways of doing the job, and I'm not going to. That's a wall of text. I'm not going to read all that. And there's a simple reason for that. I don't want to get any more involved than I already did in the previous video that I recorded yesterday. So, and the main reason for that is you asked me a technology question in the first video, why do I need iBGP? You asked me why that's there, and I made some assumptions based off of what you told me. That's a technology question. This is a design question where it is directly related to a customer environment, and I'm not going to cross that boundary. So this would be a different situation if you were, yeah, and you already said, where is it? Somewhere in here there's the term customer. Yeah, right here. Now a little bit about general design for this customer. By you putting that out there, I read the entire thing, and I'm not going to dive into it. So if you're watching this and you want to read up up on the solutions, and then you want to give your feedback on it, that's fine. That's a whole other situation. I am not going to go any further than I already have, because I don't want something to happen where you take what I suggest, I break them down, I say, maybe all three make sense. And then I say, C makes more sense to me than A does. And that's the direction I would go. And then you go implement A, or whatever letter I just said, and something blows up. And then you're in a situation where you went online. And so I don't know how your engineering process works, but I know my engineering process, a lot of times when there's something would go boom or bump in the night and there'd be a problem, you had to do a post-mortem, meaning you had to give an explanation and a reason as to why things happened the way that they did. And I am not about to sit here and get emails or have some sort of legal issue come up on a YouTube response that I did and basically said, I think A makes more sense. And for clarity's sake, I'm not giving any specific response back. I'm hypothetical here. So I'm not going to do that, because I would hate. I'm not saying you would do this, but I don't know you. And for people that I don't know and I don't trust to make good decisions, I don't take this any further. So since you put that out there, now if you wouldn't have put it out there and I was reading along, it was like inside their LAN at all branches and headquarters. So situations like this are, I tread very, very carefully with this, because I don't want anything to come back on me. So that is why I'm not going to go and give you the way that I would handle this. So I'm actually a little surprised that you are. Other people have done this in the past, and I've handled it the exact same way. When people come to me where they're asking, they give it like a high level, and then they want to get more specific, and they have a breakdown for it, and they want my opinion on it. I don't give it, and I won't. Now it'd be a different story if I had my own consulting firm, and we were going through proper channels where you were bringing me in, and there was compensation is the last thing I'd actually be thinking about. There's legalities to this. If something goes wrong when you're doing whatever you're doing, and you end up having to explain what happened, and somehow I get brought into this, and then I've got some sort of, I don't know, I'm not even sure what legal process you could throw at me. I would be like, okay, listen, this was I don't do disclaimers of saying that this is just my 2 cents. So that's how I'm going to handle this. So no, I'm not going to give you which one's going to be better. At least if this was consulting, from my perspective, where you would come to me as a consultant and coming through if I had a consulting firm, if you came through it, that would be a different story, because then there would be legal protections in place, and I would be like, okay, I'm gonna advise on the network, I'm gonna advise on the design, but you are going to be the one that's going to have to fully bake this. You're the one that's going to have to go through all 3 different variations, make sure you have them ready to go, so you know exactly what you need to do in each one, and go from there. Because even if it goes swimmingly, and it means you deploy whatever option you choose, and then everything goes well, and you get high fives and handshakes, and everybody's happy that you did what you had to do. That's great. I don't want any recognition. I don't want to be involved at all. So that is why when I get stuff like this, I don't take it any further than this. So now if there is other viewers that are going to watch this and they want to weigh in on what they would do, be my guest. Like as a public comment, you can I delete the comment? I could. I'm not going to, because you put it out there, and the follow-on stuff, it's you weren't very clear in the initial question and what you wanted, but here it's laid out and pretty clear to me where you're going with this. So that's a different situation. Now, if you would have brought this as a hypothetical and said, okay, here, this is the lab I'm working on, and this is the situation I'm in, I would help you to a certain extent. Like I would point you in the right direction and dig into whatever other details might need to be hashed out, but I would focus on it from a technology perspective. If this was a design question, like, hey, I'm thinking about this or I'm thinking about that, if I don't have any foresight that this is a customer, for example, you literally put in here now a little bit about general design for this customer and their LAN inside blah 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 blah. Okay, and I understood that it was, you didn't have to, there's a little bit of repetitiveness in the way you say it, and I know English is probably not your first language, so don't take that as offensively. I'm just stating a fact of how I'm reading this. So when I see the blue highlighted line, I automatically stop. I hit the brakes. If you brought this to me as a hypothetical, and this is what if I was going to go one way or the other, which way would you go? If I don't know if it's a customer, and I weigh in, and then something comes back, I can say, well, there's nothing that indicates it's a customer. I answered it as a design question, and this is the direction I would go, but it's not my fault if you are messing around and something goes boom, and people start picking up the phone and calling people to say stuff's down. That's not on me. That's on you. It's your due diligence. You have to put in the due diligence as the engineer to make sure that whatever option you go with, that it's going to go smoothly. Remember 80-20 rule. So that's essentially where that comes into play. And so don't go back in here and schwack the line and be like, okay, I updated it. I'm still not going to do it. And so now that I know I won't even say it's a name related thing. Now that I have seen this come across, again, if I see anywhere in there that this might be an active customer for you, I'm not going to answer the question. I might dig into it to a certain extent. There will be a technology and design. I'll answer those specific questions. I will be like, okay, how would you do this? I would probably do it that way, but it would be high level, like I did yesterday. EBGP, and you want to handle the routing a certain way. That's how I would handle it. But it's when you get down to to minute detail. Even if you would have put line 3 further down, I probably would have picked up on it. I was like, well, that's awfully specific. So these are scenarios that I steer away from because of the fact that I don't want there to be any backlash on me. And so for those of you that are thinking, well, you do this all the time when you're in your videos and you're talking about stuff that you've done. Yeah, you're right. Because it's customers that I've supported. And I'm talking about my experience. I'm not going out to say, I'm going to throw some names out there that I'm sure you guys are familiar with. I'm not going out to Kevin Wallace or Nick Russo or Zig Zigga or Orhan Ergun or anybody else that you might know in the IT instructor space and basically doing a text dump on one of their YouTube videos and then hoping that they're going to see it and then provide me solutions for whatever I'm doing. I would never do that. I would that would be an internal conversation with other other engineers that I work with, and I would handle it that way. This is not something that I would put out. I mean, there's no customer information in here, so I have no idea who the customer is. But there's that's the aspect that I would want to steer away from when it comes to protecting myself as an engineer. And you know, so I'm gonna also assume that you're gonna be like, okay, well, since you won't answer the question because of that reason, then based off of the three options that I've gone through, what would you do? How would you present? And the answer to your question is, how would I present the different solutions? Is you would have to do a presentation of sorts. So I've done this plenty of times where I've had a PowerPoint presentation that I've built with all three like high level bullet points. We're going to do this, 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 and this. And then you bullet point it out. You do it like a PowerPoint presentation so they can see what you're going to do and the before and the after. And so they know what's going to happen, where it's going to happen, why it's going to happen, what are the caveats that are involved. So you've fully baked out all three solutions. And then you're going to say, okay, I think we should go with this option, and then here's why. And so by doing that, you're giving visuals, you're giving information, you're providing options. Maybe that's not what you're supposed to do. Maybe that's not whoever you're working for or working with. They want you to just be like, okay, one of these three is the best. That's what I would go forward with, right? I mean, you can do that, but any good engineer is going to be able to articulate, they're going to select A, B, or C, and then they're going to say why that particular letter is the reason why I'm going this way. And then you're going to open it up for questions, debate, things like that, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to, just because I have a CCIE doesn't mean I have all the right answers. So it doesn't even matter if I had 8 CCIEs and a CCDE and I had gone, been 25 years in the industry. No amount of certifications is going to replace industry experience. So there's, it's going to definitely help. You're going to be knowledgeable. So don't misunderstand me when I say that certifications are pointless. But there's a piece to that. It doesn't matter how many CCAs I have. It's, so anyway, with that being said, that is where I'm going to leave this one. And I wanted to give a thorough explanation as to why I'm not going to answer the question and go from there. So, and in the future, if you guys are, if you have the inkling of trying to do this type of stuff, I have no problem with the original question was, why do I need iBGP between this device and that device? And I answered the question because that was the way the routing design was set up. There's some assumptions that I made, but based off of my understanding of how iBGP works and how EIGRP works, that was the answer I provided. Well, apparently, that there was more to it than what I had anticipated when I first answered the question. So that is why I'm not going to go any further with that. But like I said, if you guys want to jump in and answer the question or provide your 2 cents on it, be my guest. So I'm actually going to scroll. Oops, I have to go back here a little bit to comments, and we're going to scroll down here a little bit. Go back to, let's see here. How far back do I have to go? I forgot where I left off with. It was, I think it was a TE. So can you talk about MPLS TE and show us some configuration examples? I will, not in this video specifically, but so TE and fast reroute work with each other. So you have traffic engineering, fast reroute. So traffic engineering is the RSVP, so resource reservation protocol, is the key mechanism that you would use inside of a service provider core to do bandwidth reservations. And it is really raining outside, so if you guys hear the rain, pardon me. So that's what they use it for. There's other things that you can do with that. You can add in a specific metric weights. You can adjust the TE metric, so you can have it do a bunch of different like when RSVP, when a new tunnel is being created and you hit the enter key to try to bring it up, there's going to be every device between the head end and the tail end of the TE tunnel are going to be queried. There's going to be a path message that's sent down from the tail, head to the tail, and then making sure that all of the constraints. So we have never talked about the constraint shortest path first, or CSPF. There's constraint-based routing. So you're adding in, I need this amount of bandwidth. I need to take this particular path, so on and so forth. Avoid these links because of these particular reasons, with shared risk link groups, SRLGs, or affinity values, so on and so forth. So when you get into these things, TE is designed to, at a minimum, is bandwidth reservation. That's the key thing. There's no other mechanism out there, not even segment routing, can do traffic or bandwidth reservations. That's what RSVP's job is to do. So it's an integrated services model where you're doing end-to-end signaling across the network for a particular flow. So any traffic that's going to follow the FEC, the forward, what does FEC stand for? Forwarding equivalency construct, I think is what FEC stands for. So you're following the IPv4 path, where the label path for your IPv6 traffic. And that's what TE's job is to do. So there's a lot of stuff out there online. And so I'm going to also pirouette into fast reroute. Fast reroute comes into play. There's both link and there's node protection for that. You've got NHOP, which is link protection, and you get NNHOP, which is node protection, where you're going to completely route around another device. So the idea with that is, if in the event that there's a link between two devices or an entire device itself goes down, fast reroute's job is to, in a quick, fast, and in a hurry, to route around the failure. Fast reroute. So there will be all the links will be protected, and you'll have explicit paths and tunnel configurations in place to make sure that those things don't fail. And the idea is, if something happens, a link between two devices goes down, for link protection, you're automatically going to spin up another TE tunnel that's going to route you around that link. It'll take an alternative path between point A and point B. Node protection does the exact same thing, except for it just bypasses the entire node. So that's where that comes into play. And I've demoed it out on both iOS and XR. It's not very difficult now that I've spent quite a bit of time on it, but it's just one of those things where that's where that comes into play. So I'll give some configuration examples. My goal is, there's some real-world network training that I wanted to go through, and I did present a topology for it, and there was quite a few positive responses that came from that video. So I wanted to, as I was thinking about it, somebody made a comment about it, the topology being huge, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. So I'm thinking what I would do is do it in a almost like a module type basis, where I would do real world networking for the campus, or real world networking for the WAN. Break it up into chunks: data center, DMZ, security posture, colo. Kind of take all the different parts of the network that's out there, cloud type connectivity, and then how we would put it into a flow, so it's not like one gigantic topology. Or it could be, and we just focus on one little part of it. And then there's you have one major part of the network that's always running, and then all other parts can be turned on and turned off, and we modularize it, I guess. Figure out something like that. So that's kind of the goal that I have with that. So and there's another question that came in to me through an alternative manner, and the question was, am I going to continue the Cisco Enterprise video series releases? And no. And the reason for that is looking at the analytics of YouTube views for the content that I put out so far for Cisco Enterprise, the numbers are very, very low. I'm not exactly sure why, but they are. So maybe I don't know if it's the video format, if it's the content in the video, I don't know. But for whatever reason, and I don't label things CCIE because it covers more than CCIE. It covers NA, NP, and IE. So, or maybe I just need to do a better job with marketing and tagging and things like that. I don't know, but the view counts were very, very low, less than a couple hundred views per video. Even though when I would do a dump of 20 videos for like things like BGP, so my goal is to anything long form video, or I should say like certification specific videos, stuff like that. I'm working on developing a website where that'll all get hosted in that respect, so that it'll be, if you like the training that I produce and you want to go watch those videos, go to my training site, and that's where that'll be. So that's the goal with that. What food is your city, town famous for? Well, I can tell you that the state as a whole is well known for cheese curds. And if you don't know what a cheese curd is, Google it. We'd like to hear about some of your barbecue rib processing prep and technique. So I do like ribs, but I don't eat them very often. When I do ribs, it's usually a salt and pepper rub, and I put them on the smoker. I have a Traeger Ironwood 885 in the backyard, and then I have another Traeger up north where we go camping, and I will cook food on that. Preparation, I'm a Texas barbecue kind of person. That's the type of Texas barbecue that I like to make and eat, and there's really not a whole lot to it. You put them on the smoker at 225 until they get to 165-ish, 170, and then I wrap them in aluminum foil and I let them cook until they're done, and I eat them. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to it. So, ever came across a manager that was abusive to you? And mind telling us about this incident if so? So, I haven't been in a abusive, no. I have had some managers that were interesting to work with, and that's the term I'll use. I won't get into too many specifics because if they ever watch this stuff, I don't want there to be. Well, one of them doesn't matter anymore, but so I used to work for a manager that would inject stress into a situation just to see how you would react. Raise his voice, start getting very vulgar, 4-letter words, name calling, things like that. And it just wasn't a good working environment. I ended up leaving that job. I walked out in the middle of a meeting because I was trying to explain something, and he basically, I was a CCIE at the time, and told me in not so many words that I was not qualified to talk about networking. So he didn't say it in that specific verbiage, but he was very, very vulgar. There was a lot of very condescending, and I'm like, if we're at a bar and we're drinking and we've had a few drinks and we're actually buddies and we get along with each other, and you want to sit there and start talking smack to me, and you're okay with me firing back at you and we take some jabs at each other, that's one thing. But and then we're having a little bit of fun with it. It's a whole other thing when you're going to sit there and basically verbally assault me. No, sorry, I'm not putting up with that. Toughest song that you learned how to play on a guitar. There's quite a few difficult songs. I would say the one that I really would want to know how to play is Fade to Black by Metallica. There's a lot of really good solos in that one, and I know like the main pieces to it. There's I even played a little bit of it when I did that one video where I played. Um, Lots of really good guitar riffs in that song. I'm not at that level to where I would uh, be, there's no, like, I've tried to sit down and learn it. I just don't have the finger technique to play it. Toughest guitar bar chord for you. I honestly don't know. Guitar bar chord chart. So let's bring this over here real quick and look at images. So the thing about bar chords is, I'll bring this over just so you have an idea what I'm talking about. Actually, that's not spelled correctly. It's B-A-R-R-E. So a bar chord means that you're covering multiple strings at a single time with a single finger. That's what a bar chord is. So you have your A. There's really C7's kind of challenging. They're all pretty easy. Well, B would be challenging too because you got to get 3 fingers in a row on three frets. So you're basically like you're holding you're basically like this. You're trying to use this, and this on 1 fret, and then you're also trying to use this on a fret, 2 frets ahead of it, and the X means you're muting the string, so you're covering with on A, E, A, D, G, B, and E. You're using these, but low E and high E, you're muting them. That's what the X means. And then we have here, that's the 10th fret, because the way that's lined up right there, that indicates that's the nut. The nut is going to be where the strings leave the fretboard and go into the headstock, which is where the tuning pegs sit. So that's that. And last question before I jump off of here and wrap this video up. Do the ISP cores have to use IS, or OSPF? I understand it's a common practice, right? It is. My core, the provider that I work with, or work for, I should say, we use IS to IS. And the key reason that is the moment that you deploy MPLS, the moment you need OSPF or IS to IS. And IS to IS, in my opinion, scales better than OSPF. You have levels, not areas, where, from the hierarchy with a end-to-end connectivity, levels to me are way easier to work with. And then you can control things much more easily than you can with OSPF and areas. So OSPF is great in some cases, but in my opinion, IS to IS is better. That's why I'm spending a lot of time in the SP track to learn IS to IS and become very, very comfortable with it. Almost the same, well, if not better than OSPF. I'm very comfortable with OSPF, but in the routing and switching track, that was the key protocol. But if you need to use MPLS, you're automatically going to go IS to IS or an link state routing protocol, because there's enhancements for MPLS traffic engineering, MPLS LDP. With segment routing, you can turn on segment routing in the IGP, and you're using IGP extensions to do your labeling and things like that. So that's the reason why you go that direction. So that's it for this video. I'm going to call it here because we're almost 35 minutes. And so I want to thank you guys for stopping by and hanging out with me in this video. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, drop it in the comment section below. There will be links in the description to if you don't have the join button option on the video, you can click the top link and that'll take you to Patreon for $10 a month. So you get access to all the topologies and all that type of stuff through Google Drive. There will be a link to the sample workbook if you want to check out the workbook, and there will also be a link for the actual workbook that you can download once you have access to it. So with that being said, I'm looking forward to tomorrow for Whiteboard Wednesday. We're going to be diving into some more design type of stuff and understanding some of the more intricate pieces of the 2 and 3 tier architecture. We'll talk a little bit about SD access and how that's you're bringing in sort of like a cloth or a spine leaf architecture into the campus. We'll talk briefly about how that comes into play and go from there. Friday is going to be our coaching session, so if you are a member of the channel, whether it's through YouTube directly or if it's through Patreon, you guys can join the coaching session Friday, and I'll be doing a we talked about NAT on iOS and ASA, and I even spun up a Palo and did a quick NAT demonstration on Palo, and we'll be taking advantage of doing IPsec VPN with NAT exemptions in case some of you have that particular scenario in place. A lot of times you don't have to worry about it if you do route-based. If you do route-based tunnels, ASA doesn't do it, but if you are a router and you want to do route-based VPN or a Palo and you want to do a route-based VPN, you don't need to do NAT exemption because you're routing it and not having to separate your traffic based on policy. Anyway, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for stopping by, and I'll catch all of you in the next one. Have a good one, everybody.